All right. You said you had something else too, right?
Yes, I do. Now, I think people have maybe noticed, if you've been keeping up with the draft and keeping up with NFL Network and how they're talking about these different players, that some players have been rising up the draft boards and some players have been dropping down. One of those guys dropping down has been CJ Stroud. I was scratching my head. I'm trying to figure out how CJ Stroud went from possibly being the number one pick overall to dropping down so far, so much so that it's being steadily reported on, but nobody's saying why. There haven't been any more pro days. He's had some visits, but I haven't heard about him having any bad visits or throwing bad balls. Everything that was good about him is still good about him. He's not hurt. What the heck happened? Well, it turns out that there used to be such a thing as a Wonderlic test. It's an actual written test where they ask certain questions of NFL players. It's not a requirement. I don't think it was a requirement, but most teams do request it. So of course, most players do oblige and go ahead and take the test. But it turns out that the Wonderlic was sort of kind of like taking the SATs. So back in 2015, they decided to change it to a cognition test, which they call the S2 test. Now, the S2 test, let's see how this S2 test works. It goes to 100 or 99% is the highest you can get. Anything within between like 75 and 99% is considered really, really good. And anything below like 50% is considered really, really bad. Now, the test takes into consideration perception speed, search efficiency, tracking capacity, visual learning, instinctive learning, decision complexity, distraction control, impulse control, and improvisation. One specific part of the test I heard Anthony Richardson speak on. He said they put 6 balls on the screen and they moved the balls around, and somehow you need to figure out where each ball was and where it went, or something along those lines. There are also multiple choice questions involved. Now, it turns out that somebody leaked some of the quarterbacks' test scores. And that seems to be what all the hubbub is. Bryce Young was 98%. Will Levis was 93%. Anthony Richardson, who some people said this guy's going to need a lot of time to develop, he was 79%, which is considered really good. CJ Stroud came in at 18%, bro. 18%. That's basically a failure. And some folks think that that is why he's dropping down on people's boards. Now, the crazy thing is, the person that invented the test said that you got to take the test scores with a grain of salt. They're not, I mean, if a guy gets 98%, that doesn't mean he's going to be a Hall of Famer. And if a guy gets 18%, that doesn't mean he's going to suck and he doesn't deserve to be drafted. But it does tell you something, okay? Now, I'm one of those guys that believe in the, when people say I'm not a test taker, okay, that's immediately what CJ Stroud said. I found some video where he was presented with the fact that they found out the school. And he said, I play football. I'm not a test taker. I'm not going to let that bother me. I've done my pro day. I've gone on visits. I've done personal workouts for whatever team called me, and it's all good. I'm not worried about it. But that's the only thing that I can see that would damage or possibly damage his standing with some teams. I don't know what else to say about it, but I just want to let people know that this test does exist and that people are, here's the other thing. The person who invented the test also said that players were allowed to take the test more than once. And they started the process kind of early on. So he said it's possible they didn't release these, they were leaked. It's possible that the scores that were leaked were early scores. And he said, I can't mention any names, but there was a player who we were going to test before one of the All-Star games, like the Senior Bowl and all that, the East-West Shrine. He said he got there late for some reason. He was very tired. He hadn't eaten. They presented him with the test. He agreed to take it. It's possible that he had a low score and that score should be thrown out, and he probably took the test again.
So the he you're talking about is C.J. Stroud? I mean, you kind of...
I am assuming that.
You're
He
assuming.
did not mention the name.
Okay.
He did not mention the name.
You know, it's funny. My experience with tests kind of swings in two different directions, right? I remember being in my daughter's library for a school function at Roxborough High School, and they had these little pamphlets, and the pamphlet was to help you figure out what your career,
Right.
path would be good for you. So, but it only had about 5 questions, but each question had about that many PhD names behind it, right? So Ben, I figure out, I'm sitting there, I got nothing else to do, right? I answer the questions, right? Then you go over, you take your answers, and they got a grid that tells you all the jobs, right? I go down the thing, it says, telephone installer.
You're lying.
I swear. Now, but this is where it went.
No. You're making that up.
This is where it went wrong, Benny. I didn't get telephone manager because they said I wasn't verbal enough. Okay.
For those of you who don't know, he was in fact a telephone installer.
So these questions, I have a certain respect for them, but by the same token, I was in a situation. Now, at the phone company, we used to have to go to assessments, right? Where they would test you for different things, right? So I'm trying to move up in the world. I'm going for the programmer assessment, right? So I go for the programmer assessment, right? I'm sitting in the class. It's a class of us, 15, 20 people or whatever. And the lady comes out and she does what she called the little mini course. She teaches, she goes through this little thing, right?
Right.
And then she says, okay, now we're going to take the test. So you've had your little mini course and I'm going to give you the test. Do you have any questions? I was so confused. I could not ask a question. There was nothing that I could add. I mean, I could just go, duh, something like that, but I couldn't pull a question. So I'm sitting there going, well, I can't be the only one this confused. Somebody else got to have a question. Somebody else always got a question.
Somebody's going to ask a question. The question I need asked. Nobody said a word.
Nobody.
I took the assessment test. Nobody asked a question when I took it.
It was later that I found out that the reason nobody had a question is because pretty much everybody but me was back there for the second time.
Right. They've been there before.
They've been there before. So when you talk about C.J. Stroud could have had a bad day, things just, but you've seen him operate a high-level college football team.
That's right.
You've seen all of that.
I'll tell you something else. Have you ever seen on NFL Network when Steve Mariucci takes the highly ranked quarterbacks before the draft in a room, puts them on a whiteboard, draws up plays? They did that again this year. I happened to catch the one with C.J. Stroud. He put a play up, diagnosed it. This is what we want. This is what we see. This is the defense. This is who's the primary. Who's He does all that. They did like 3 more. Then he sat him down and he asked him about 5 or 6 questions. And when he was done, he said, now go back to the board and put the very first play we talked about back up there. And he went pop, 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 boom, to a T. To a T.
I've seen it. I've seen
He
it.
said, if they give me zone, I got this one. If they give me man, I got this. I was like, wow.
There's different types of intelligences,
Right.
and you know, skill levels of things. I mean, you know, I know guys who, when I went to high school, they weren't in the highest level of intellectual grades, but they wound up in a computer course somewhere working for a large IBM type company and making the goo gobs of money. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
you know, everybody has their strengths, but we've seen CJ Stroud. The main, like I said, Bryce Young, everybody's loving him. He's smart as a whip. You know, I'm sure there's no doubt about it. He does all the things that they say he can do. He doesn't panic. He moves well. You know, the only question is when they grab him and flip over like they do with that spin move and slam him down, is he going to have the body strength that Tua didn't have? And that's why Tua's trying to learn how to fall. He taking jujitsu or something, karate or something, so he can learn how to fall, you know. But long story short, that I know about this test. I've heard, you know, other people talk about it. And so, you know, this is interesting. And I was on the same treadmill with you going, why are they even talking about Will Levis might go first? I mean, you know,
Yeah, where did that come from?
where is this stuff coming from? CJ Stroud is obvious, you know, and so, you know, and when they even talked about Bryce Young, I'm like, I don't see that much difference, you know, in their ability to operate an offense, but one size is going to save him in a lot of situations. So we'll see, but that is very interesting, man, and to see how, and see that these are millions of dollars at stake.
Oh yeah,
Millions of dollars at stake. You know, I always talk about how Justin Fields, when he came out with what's the name that's at the Jaguars now? What's the quarterback at the Jaguars?
Oh my God, Trevor Lawrence.
Trevor Lawrence.
I
Right?
got so many names running through my head.
When I saw all the preseason stuff and all the camps they had been to, everything they said Fields was as good as Trevor Lawrence. Everything was right here. But for some reason, Trevor moved to here, Fields dropped to here, and the millions of dollars in that differential was substantial. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, you know, I hate to see that happen to a young guy. Okay, all right. We'll keep an eye on that. Ben's going to put these articles up. We'll get these articles posted up on Ben and Barry and football so you can take a closer look at them.